Hey everybody, it's the Cartoonkid back again with another fantastic fanfic idea. And today I'm bringing you Darkwing Duck versus Gargoyles Shadows over St. Canard. Now, before I begin, you're probably wondering why did I come up with this? Well, to be fair, uh, I once heard that there may be an official comic crossover between Darkwing Duck and Disney's his prelude to the Dark Knight himself, his Gargoyles. Now, a part of me is merely kind of curious on how this sort of crossover would be like, and then it sort of reminded me of a sort of crossover movie between Batman and the Ninja Turtles, who have admittedly had some comic crossovers in the past a few times before. But still, part of me was kind of curious as to how a crossover between Darkwing Duck and Gargoyles would be, so I figured why not base a story that's sort of similar to a movie once saw. And so, here we are. Story. Gosling Mal had pressed her face against the glass of the observation deck at Scrooge Industries, watching the massive quantum Renaissance generator being loaded onto a transport truck below. The field trip to St. Canard's most advanced tech company had been boring until now, but something about the purple-clad figures moving with inhuman grace around the loading dock caught her attention. She pulled her phone She pulled out her phone to record as the figures, who moved like ninjas but seemed far too large and powerful, effortlessly hefted equipment that shouldn't have required heavy machinery. What she didn't notice were the four winged silhouettes perched on the building's Gothic spires, watching the same scene unfold with predatory intensity. Darkwing Duck's dramatic entrance from his gas gun smoke was cut short as a massive stone fist nearly took his head off. Drake spun midair, a cape billowing, as he found himself face to face with what looked like a living gargoyle. Red eyes glowed in the darkness as the creature regarded him with surprising intelligence. Below them, the fearsome five had just broken into another high-tech facility, but instead of Negaduck's usual smash and grab approach, they were working with disturbing precision alongside figures in ancient armor. The gargoyle spread his wings and dove toward the fray without another glance at the confused duck. A crossbow, a crossbow bolt whistled past Darkwing's head as more armored figures emerged from the shadows. The pack, led by the steel-clawed fox and the cybernetic wolf. Whatever was happening here was clearly bigger than his usual Tuesday night villain roundup. In the abandoned subway tunnels beneath St. Canard, Goliath studied the holographic displays that Brooklyn had jury-rigged from salvaged Xanatos tech. The clan had been tracking Demona and her new allies across the country, following a trail of stolen mystical artifacts and advanced technology. Brooklyn reports Brooklyn's reports painted a disturbing picture, uh, some kind of fusion device that combined magic and science, being concentrated with military precision by warriors who fought with ancient discipline. The armored humans working with Demona moved like soldiers from their own medieval era, suggesting this threat reached far deeper than a simple criminal alliance. Lexington's computer chimed with intercepted police communications about a local vigilante called the Terror That Flaps in the Night, who had been disrupting criminal operations across the city. The Gargoyles exchanged meaningful glances. Another protector operated the, in the shadows, one who might prove to be either ally or obstacle in their hunt for Demona. The first meeting between Darkwing Duck and the Manhattan Clan went about as well as expected. Darkwing had been investigating reports of winged monsters terrorizing criminals, convinced it was either Negaduck's latest scheme or some new supervillain trying to muscle in on his territory. When he finally cornered what he assumed was the leader atop St. Canard Cathedral, he went in with gas pellets blazing. Goliath's tail swept Goliath's tail sweep sent the dog tumbling across the roof tiles, clearly more bemused than threatened by the masked vigilante's assault. Angelia landed gracefully beside her father as Darkwing sputtered indignantly, smoke literally coming from his ears. The argument escalated quickly, with neither side willing to back down or explain themselves clearly. The standoff was interrupted by an explosion from across the city. Though, through the smoke and flames, a massive mechanical dragon rose up into the night sky, electricity crackling between its wings as it surveyed the city below like a metallic apex predator. In the ruins of an ancient castle that had been mysteriously reconstructed in St. Canard's industrial district, Demona stood before a massive machine that pulsed with both technological energy and mystical power. The device combined Xanatos' most advanced robotics with artifacts she'd spent centuries collecting, a fusion of everything she'd learned about both human innovation and ancient sorcery. A fearsome fight stood at attention nearby, but they were different now, enhanced with both cybernetic implants and mystical tattoos that glowed with eldritch power. Negaduck's already considerable strength had been boosted to near superhuman levels, while Megabone's electrical abilities now channeled magical energy that could disrupt any defense. The pack had pledged themselves to Demona's cause in exchange for power beyond their wildest dreams. Fox's steel claws now crackled with enchanted energy, while Wolf's cybernetic enhancements had been augmented with mystical strength that made him nearly unstoppable in combat. The Medusa device hummed with anticipation as Demona made her final preparations. When the moon reached its zenith, the machine would be at full power, ready to transform every human in the city into stone statues that would serve as an army of gargoyle slaves in her new world order. The second meeting between Darkwing and the Gargoyles went considerably better, mostly because they were too busy fighting for their lives to argue. The mechanical dragon had attacked the city's power plant, its fusion of magic and technology, making it nearly invulnerable to conventional attacks. While Darkwing engaged it with his usual array of gadgets and theatrical combat maneuvers, the Gargoyles struck from multiple angles with coordinated precision, both from centuries of warfare. Born from centuries of warfare. Angela tackled Darkwing out of the way of a plasma blast, while Goliath grappled with the dragon's massive head. Brooklyn and Lexington worked together to disable the dragon's wing servos, while Broadway and Hudson attacked its power core with ancient weapons that somehow proved effective against futuristic armor. But it was Darkwing's intimate knowledge of st.canard's infrastructure that proved crucial. He guided them to the dragon's weakness, a cooling intake that connected directly to its mystically enhanced processor. As the mechanical beast crashed into the harbor, the unlikely allies finally had a chance to assess each other properly. The gargoyles' noble bearing an obvious dedication to protecting innocents gradually convinced Darkwing that they weren't the monsters he'd assumed them to be, while his genuine courage and intimate knowledge of the city's criminal underworld earned their grudging respect. In Darkwing's secret lair, an unusual war council convened. Gosling had snuck down to find her adopted father deep in conversation with what she initially thought were incredibly realistic Halloween decorations before the obvious reality of living. Breathing gargoyles overwhelmed her with excitement. Angela smiled at the girl's enthusiasm, recognizing in her the same brave spirit that had once driven humans to stand alongside the gargoyles against impossible odds. Meanwhile, Lexington interfaced his portable computer with Darkwing's surprisingly sophisticated crime-fighting database, mapping the pattern of thefts and analyzing the stolen components. The technological elements suggested something far more complex than simple mystical transformation. A fusion of magic and science that could affect entire populations simultaneously. Hudson's ancient knowledge confirmed their worst fears. they were facing a large-scale transmutation ritual enhanced by modern technology. Goliath's grim recounting of Damona's history painted a picture of a brilliant, ruthless enemy consumed by centuries of hatred for humanity. Her new alliance with St. Canard's criminal underworld provided her with both the resources and the knowledge needed to implement her most ambitious plan yet. The heroes spent the remaining hours before dawn on prepping for what would likely be their only chance to stop Demona before her plans reach fruition. The attack came at dawn, just as Demona had calculated. With the gargoyles forced into their stone sleep by the rising sun, she expected to face only Darkwing Duck and whatever pathetic human allies he could muster. She had not counted on Darkwing's newest gadget, a mystical amulet borrowed from Morgan Macabre that could temporarily shield the gargoyles from their daytime curse. Darkwing burst through the castle's main window with his usual theatrical flair, while Goliath smashed through the wall beside him with considerably more direct force. The battle that followed was epic in scope, with enhanced villains fighting far beyond their normal capabilities against heroes pushed to their absolute limits. The fearsome Five's new abilities made them nearly unrecognizable. Negaduck moved with superhuman speed and strength, while Bushwood's plant control now drew on primal earth magic that made his creations nearly indestructible. The pack coordinated their attacks with military precision, their enhanced abilities making them formidable opponents even for experienced gargoyle warriors. Brooklyn and Lexington worked frantically to disable the Medusa device's power coupling, while Broadway kept multiple enemies busy with his surprising combat prowess. Angela and Hudson faced off against the pack, their ancient weapons and techniques proving more than a match for enhanced modern technology. But the real confrontation was between Goliath and Demona, with Darkwing caught in the crossfire of the conflict that had raged over 1,000 years. The climax came as Demona, desperate and cornered with her plans crumbling around her, attempted to activate the Medusa device manually. The mystical energies began to spiral out of control, threatening to turn not just the city but half the continent to stone in an uncontrolled chain reaction. Darkwing worked frantically at the device's controls, his surprising technological knowledge allowing him to understand the hybrid magical technological system well enough to attempt a shutdown sequence, but Demona's manual override was fighting his efforts, her centuries of magical knowledge giving her advantages he couldn't counter. The energy buildup reached critical levels as ancient magic and modern science fed back on each other in increasingly dangerous harmonics. The castle began to shake apart as reality itself strained under the conflicting forces being channeled through the device. It was Goliath who made the ultimate sacrifice, using his own body to absorb the device's energy and redirect it skyward. The magical blast sucked into the sky like a pillar of light, dispersing harmlessly into the atmosphere but leaving the noble Gargoyle leader badly wounded. His stone-like skin cracked and bleeding from the mystical feedback. Demona knelt beside her former love as the other gargoyles surrounded them, her rage finally giving way to genuine anguish at the price of her hatred. 3 weeks later, st.canard had returned to its normal level of barely controlled chaos. The fearsome five were back in prison with their enhancements neutralized. The pack had scattered to the winds, and Demona had been taken into custody by discreet government agents who specialize in supernatural threats. Darkwing found himself looking forward to sunset each day, when his new allies would awaken from their stone sleep and join him in protecting the city. The Gargoyle's ancient wisdom and combat experience complemented his modern crime-fighting techniques perfectly, while their noble dedication to protecting innocents reminded him of why he'd chosen this path in the first place. Gosselin had formed fast friendships with the younger gargoyles, learning about history and combat techniques from beings who had lived through centuries of conflict. Angela took particular interest in teaching the girls self-defense, recognizing her potential to follow in her father's heroic footsteps. As the sun set in St. Canard Cathedral, Goliath spread his wings and took flight alongside Darkwing, both protectors united in their commitment to guard the night. The city's skyline stretched out below them, full of shadows that might hide threats, but also hope for those who chose to stand against the darkness. The unlikely alliance between a theatrical duck and a clan of ancient gargoyles had proven that even the most different of heroes could find common ground in their shared dedication to justice. Epilogue. In a maximum security facility designed to hold supernatural threats, Demona sat in her cell, staring out the skylight through reinforced windows. The chains that bound her were inscribed with mystical symbols that suppressed her abilities, but couldn't touch her mind or diminish her centuries-old hatred. She scratched a symbol into the stone wall with her claws, a mark that hadn't been seen for centuries, the sign of the Illuminati. In the shadows beyond her cell, red eyes glowed with patient anticipation. Her current imprisonment was merely a temporary setback in a much larger game. The war between ancient magic and modern justice was far from over. Other allies waited in the darkness. Other enemies plotted in secret, and others' threats gathered strength in the space between worlds. But for now, st.canard slept peacefully under the protection of its unlikely guardians. unaware that their greatest challenges still lie ahead. And yeah, that is essentially my best interpretation of what I believe a crossover between Darkwing Duck and the Gargoyles could be like. But I digress. Anyway, this is pretty much all I got for today, so please be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe if you kind of like this idea. And if you do like it, want to use it, improve on it a little bit, all I simply ask is credit for the idea. Okay, bye.